Hello, everyone, and welcome into Collect TV. I'm Matt Liberman, joined by Ben Burrows, Will Stern, and Kevin Jackson. And with the new year, we are talking to you about things that we want to see in the hobby this year. Will, we can start with you. What's the number one thing that you want to see most?
So something I'm really hoping to see, and something that I think is very doable, is for eBay and a lot of these auction houses to do something very simple, which is ensure cert numbers are activated and check against it when they're listed, right? That's a super simple thing. Cards are standardized, they're in slabs. You can look it up. eBay's integrated with PSA. And time again, we see fake cards with fake cert numbers, borrowed cert numbers, and it goes through, right? And there's other things that are kind of on that same vein, like ways that sellers are able to get around the authentication process in eBay, right? Like they can use a fake slab, and as long as it says it's a third party authenticator, then it doesn't have to get passed through. So I think there's a lot of things there that are easy steps that can be taken, and I really hope that they will be taken this year to really shore up that trust in the selling.
Holistically, auction houses and secondary marketplaces have to do a better job of protecting the consumer. There are safeguards in place, but as we've seen, there are some really easy loopholes to get
Mm.
through some of those safeguards. And frankly, the secondary marketplaces that have been victim to some of those loopholes have just sort of dragged their feet on getting those things fixed. And also, Will brought up just additional information. These auction houses and secondary market on secondary marketplaces, people conveniently leave out information that would be beneficial to the collector. We see it with major auction houses as well when they're leaving out critical pieces of provenance that
Why
that
is a pop report not in every single card listing on the internet? It's
that's fair.
inexcusable. Inexcusable. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, just across trading cards holistically, the lack of information on the secondary market and with major auction houses, it's troubling and really it has to be leveled up. I think in
And
2025, it has to be leveled up.
and I think just the important thing to point out here is there's a reason for this, and it's because it's the third party authentication relationship with the auction house, the eBay seller, whomever, is a pass the buck kind of thing. Because if you're selling it, you have your disclaimer under it is authenticated by this other company, right? And that's all. Hey, we just sold it as is, right? It's authenticated by those people over there. You can see it on the slab. Wash our hands of it. But to me, you know, do they need to be doing forensic investigations on every $5 card? No. But there are plenty of cases where sellers know better or platforms know better, right? And are able to detect it. And there's no incentive for them to intervene because they're protected by that third party guarantor.
Ben?
So guys, the thing that I really want to see in 2025 is just rooted out of frustration and jealousy. I think 2024 was a year of game use memorabilia for a whole bunch of categories, not so much for trading cards. We see it a little bit. I think Topps has done a lot better of a job getting game use memorabilia into different products. I've written about it at length, but holistically, the category straight up stinks. It stinks. We all know, all the card collectors know that during the pandemic, there were supply chain issues. The cost of acquiring assets, went up astronomically. The cost of getting deals with the leagues, the players' associations, the players themselves, just the cost of acquiring assets, the cost of creating cards jumped up a ton, but we are years out of the pandemic now. The cost of paper products at retail has gone up 50%. The cost of chrome products has gone up 100%. These companies, they have increased prices. Supply chain issues are no longer an excuse. Please, please, Just put game use memorabilia back into trading cards. We are all sick of reading on the back, this piece of memorabilia is not associated with any player, team, or event. It's junk. There's no other way around it. It's a jersey that was acquired at like Dick's Sporting Goods that you put into a trading card. People are paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for boxes of cards. We have to do better. The trading card manufacturers holistically have to do better.
So is that strictly on the trading card manufacturers, or is that on the leagues as well?
I think it's a combination of things. I think the trading card manufacturers have to work with the leagues a lot better, but we have seen that Topps created the rookie debut patch. Now it's very, very difficult to actually make that happen, but they have done it. They have, I wrote, I think it was last month, about their their quest to get more Logo Man cards, game used Logo Man cards into baseball products. If one company is actually pulling this off and they're attempting to do it, even though it's difficult, they're actually pulling it off. We also saw Topps do it with Victor Wembanyama's NBA debut
Mhm.
jersey. We know that two of them are in existent or exist. Topps was able to get one of them, at least. It's possible. And so I think Panini has to step up, Upper Deck has to step up. The reality is it is difficult, but if the leagues and the players associations want to be true partners to the trading card manufacturers, they need to help facilitate this. And if the trading card manufacturers want to be good partners to the leagues and the players associations, they have to be willing to start the conversation. I think it's a two-way street, but I think the trading card manufacturers probably need to start the conversation more.
I think I think that's a point everyone agrees with, and just to further how reasonable of a request that is, look back 20, 25 years. Don Russ literally bought a pinstripe Ruth jersey, one of like six, and cut it up and put it into cards. So it can be done at the highest level, and it has been.
Right. Right. I mean, even if we looked at the Victor Wembanyama NBA debut jersey, I think
Which,
we
by
know
the way,
that,
whether or not they were the buyers at Sotheby's, the one that
right.
sold at Sotheby's was $762,000.
Right.
So,
Something.
yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But if you totaled up the overall number of boxes of Victor Wembanyama, the Topps Mercury Victor Wembanyama set at the $8,000 per box price point, it comes out to like $32 million or something like that. Card companies can acquire these assets. They just have to be willing to put in the effort and invest in these products the way that collectors, I think, deserve.
Kevin, what about you?
Well, like everybody in the hobby, I think I want to see when the triple autograph card is going to surface and what's going to become of that. But
What's the triple autograph card?
a lot of people are asking that.
I
What is it?
forgot
What
about
is it?
it.
But what I want to talk about, I think I'm really on the same page with Ben as we enter the year, because what I want to talk about also has to do with game use and also has to do with authentication. I'm a collector of game used items. I've been buying them for probably 25 years. I own 50 game used jerseys or thereabouts. And the issue that I have, and I think we're moving towards solving, but I'd like to see us move faster, is the authentication and confidence that you have when you buy a game used item, to know exactly where it came from, exactly the game it came from, the moment it came from. Of the jerseys I own, mentioned I have probably in the neighborhood of 50. I probably have 35 different types of letters of authentication for each. The ones that I have the most confidence in are the ones that I bought either directly from a team. I live in Seattle. I bought some stuff directly from the Seahawks, which is signed by their equipment manager. But the ones I have by far the most confidence in are the ones that have come from Major League Baseball and the MLB Authentics program in the last couple of years. Matt, you did a great piece on Cllct that we ran last fall about the rigors that they put into their program, how they have authenticators out for every moment, every ball, every base, every jersey at a game. They won't authenticate something if it goes out of their eyesight. When I buy something that has their stamp on it, I know with a great deal of confidence that this jersey was used in this game. This player wore it in the third inning when he got this home run. And I'd love to see that sort of standardization extended throughout the hobby. I'd love to see all the leagues adopt something very similar, so that if I buy something from the NFL or the NBA, that I have that same that same level of confidence. Additionally, MLB, as you also wrote about, Matt, has made that stuff really accessible. Like a lot of the teams have stores right in the ballpark. You can walk right up and buy a base that was used in, earlier in the game that you were at. And I just think that sort of access to game use stuff will really help an exploding part of the hobby continue to explode even more.
I would think that would be really easy to do in basketball. I mean, the lengths that the MLB authentication program goes through is as intense as anything I've ever seen in sports. And I get that like football would be tougher because you have 53 players on your roster and you have however many people that are in a given game and you go through a bunch of different footballs used during the game. And there's so many things there. Granted, I still think that they can do it. I just think
Mm-hmm.
that of the major sports, that would be the toughest. I see no reason why basketball couldn't do that.
Yeah, I think basketball would be by far the easiest. It's the smallest playing court. You don't have milestone balls being hit into the upper deck like you do in
Right.
baseball. You don't have a player catching a milestone football like we saw just this last Sunday in the NFL and throwing it into the stands for the most part. So everything's kind of contained there, and it's pretty easy to have eyes on the players, the ball. There's only 10 guys on the court at a time. That you would think that would be somewhat easier. I'm pretty confident that we'll get there as the leagues realize the value that this brings to collectors.
Well, with the NBA specifically, they have Sotheby's as the exclusive game worn
Right,
partner. And it's
right,
not as if every jersey everyone wears and every game goes there, right? So there's
right.
still stuff that is in the ether and kind of in between authentication, photo match, whatever. It's
Mhm.
kind of not in a perfectly documented spot, but I definitely want to highlight that because it's that to me is a pretty strong stamp of approval, right? It's not quite to the standard of MLB's. MLB has, former police officers running around with binoculars tracking everything. But the fact that Sotheby's has this relationship and is sourcing it directly from the league and is, to a certain extent, kind of having an allocation of jerseys, right? They're going to get some Christmas Day. They're going to get an All-Star, that is a really strong component. And then, of course, they've got the uh, companion documentation from Migray with the photo matching and all that. So I do think it's on its way, but I totally agree with you that the everything has to come together, right?
Right, right.
That's a yeah.
Yeah, to be really clear, I mean, I think the Sotheby's thing is a step forward for sure, right? I mean, that's an official partner of the league. They're getting jerseys with, as you mentioned, that sort of documentation. I just, you know, the more documentation, the more authentication for collectors in the hobby, no matter what you're talking about, is always a good thing. And so I would just love to see that be standardized, kind of and the way baseball is doing it, so vigilant that I think if the other sports adopted,
Mm.
the Sotheby's thing was a step forward. I think if there was an NBA authentics program that was similar to baseball, and the NFL had a similar one. I know all the leagues have their various ways that they authenticate. Hockey's doing a decent job with that now as well. But I would just love to see that be vigilant and standardized across the board. And for the collector, when you're going to put down, 5-digit sum of money, sometimes a 6-digit sum of money, for some of us, a 7-digit sum of money, you'd really like to have the utmost confidence.
KJ, I'm actually surprised that nobody brought this up, but there are obviously different rules, but no one brought up college football and college basketball
Yeah, yeah,
with the era of NIL. Obviously, there are very specific rules that in many cases it says that college athletes can't sell, their team issued uniforms and equipment I believe before they leave school. We got to get that rule out of here.
right,
It's an opportunity to not only for these schools to basically just print money, but tying it into NIL collectives, I think would be huge for these athletes. The fact that none of these schools have tried to push, at least publicly, tried to push changes to that rule so that, for KJ, or I, for us to be able to bid on University of Washington or Syracuse University stuff like during the game at halftime or immediately after the game, it's insane. It would be incredible I think for college athletics holistically, and the fact that we haven't seen it yet is a little surprising, but I do expect to see that a little bit more soon.
That's a great point, Ben. And while the pro leagues have taken step forwards here, the college situations you mentioned, those rules are like pre NIL type rules when players couldn't profit, and the NCAA was worried about guys selling their helmets or their jerseys, and it is absolutely a place that I think collectors would love to see it advance. As I've told you, like I bought several University of Washington game used jerseys. I buy them at the school surplus store where they sell desk and old blackboards. The nameplates are removed. They're usually several years later. You're not exactly sure what years the jerseys were used. There's no provenance at all. And I would think some of the NIL collectives out there would say, hey, let's work with our players. Let's, get jerseys from certain games, certain moments, sell them to collectors, and let's get that money back in the NIL collective and back in the hands of the players.
Well, let's look at something that happened earlier this year. Vanderbilt knocks off Alabama. Vanderbilt then sells the game used memorabilia, but the players can't sell that themselves. Like
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
that that's the definition of insanity.
yeah. That's a rule from the 1980s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 that is pre Ed O'Bannon, pre everything.
yeah. How about you,
Uh,
Matt? What do you want to see next year?
so I think we've all discussed some great things. My thing is I think a little bit more for the average everyday collector. And I shouldn't even say average everyday collector. I think it's more for people that want to get into collecting. I would just like to see fairer pricing. I think that it's gotten to a point where, like, if you're looking at cards, I mean, it's out of control. Boxes are hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. You're pricing out um, more impoverished and middle class families. It's just difficult. I mean, like if you want to get even just like a pack of cards, it's very difficult to get it online from the original distributor because they're selling you their boxes and their cases, which are again hundreds and thousands of dollars. So then you turn to the secondary market and then they're priced up because they can be. And I think that's really unfortunate for, some young kid out there that just wants to open a pack of baseball cards and it's become very difficult to do so, especially like if it's one thing to be able to go to a store and go to a hobby shop and open a pack of cards there. But not every place around the country or around the world has that. And so I would like to see better pricing and more distribution for an overall audience. That way, more people can get into the hobby and you're not pricing anyone out or pricing any areas out. Because I think that one of the things that you'll see with this, with increased pricing, is that it's going to become tougher and tougher in urban areas to get your hands on a pack of baseball cards.
I think you make a lot of really good points, Matt. Um, in addition to one, I think the manufacturers, the trading card manufacturers, have to do a better job of creating sort of lower end sets that are actually desirable. But what has also been frustrating is the fact that when a company comes out and creates something that's really cool in that pricing tier, and the example that I will use is Panini partnered with Costco late 2024 to create these Donruss bundles for Donruss football, printed it to the moon, but they included these oversized downtown inserts, and it ended up being a situation where they created a value product. And then even though they attempted to put something that was interesting and cool in it, and all that happened is a whole bunch of collectors on the secondary market scooped that stuff up, and things that I think were originally supposed to retail around, 50 or 60 bucks. I can't remember what the original MSRP was, but it was going for 200%, 300%,
Right.
400% of that. People going into Costco, buying up pallets of these things. And I know that there were conversations where Costco is looking at the SKU come through and they're like, this is great. This is incredible. This is selling so fast. This is a wonderful partnership. And Panini has to actually say, this isn't how this is supposed to work. We know that the SKU is going through. That's all you guys are tracking because people aren't going into Costco. Costco isn't worried about people flipping, the recipe for Cheddar Bay biscuits on the
Hmm.
secondary market. But Panini has to worry about people flipping, low end products if they have even just one thing that's cool in it. on the secondary market. And so the card manufacturers have to do a better job creating those products, but also a lot of collectors, they kind of have to stop just being jerks about it.
A
You
hundred
know,
percent. And look, I mean, we saw at the National, we saw like 11-year-old kids walking around with $35,000 CJ Stroud cards. But there's also the 11-year-old that just wants to open a pack of cards because they look cool. And not everybody is going after the next great chase card. Some people just want to open a pack of cards. And I think the hobby has to recognize that and get back to that because I feel like that's how it was when I was a kid, but it's not how it is anymore. Well, that's what we want to see this 2020. Do that again. Well, that's what we all want to see this 2025. Larry David will tell you it is a week too late to wish you a happy new year. So I'll just say have a great year.